Hey. Good evening, for folks who are watching the recording. Hi, my name is Gabby Queenan. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the town of Needham. And tonight we will be doing a presentation on our Alderbrook Phase 1 100% Engineering Design project. For those of you who've been following along with this project, the town has been working with our partners at the Charles River Watershed Association and Beta for the last several months on this project over at the DeFazio parking lot. So we're going to share some information tonight about how the project came to be, where we are in the process, and how we ended up with our 100% engineering design. So with that, I will turn it over to Julie Wood at CRWA.
Thanks so much, Gabby. Good evening, folks. My name is Julie Wood. I'm the Climate Resilience Director at Charles River Watershed Association, and I'm going to give you the background on how we got to this project. Next slide. So how did we get here? I manage a group called the Charles River Climate Compact. This is a regional partnership of the cities and towns in the Charles River watershed. We've been active since about 2019, but in 2020, we started an initiative focused on flood management and flood mitigation. We developed a computer model of the Charles River watershed to simulate where and when flooding would occur under various storm scenarios. And this allows us to have a better understanding of what to expect as climate change brings more rain and more flooding. We didn't just want to focus on the problem, though. We very much wanted to identify solutions. So that's where tonight's meeting comes into play. One of the key things that we did was try to identify a variety of solutions at various scales, including some of them at site scales. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the Charles River flood model is basically just a computer simulation of the watershed. How does water move? Where does water move? Where does water settle? And where might we see flooding? All of the data produced by this model is available online. True data democracy here, so you can go on the project website, type in an address, and see what to expect. So it allows us to understand what's coming. And as I said, it also allows us to model those solutions. The project team for this part of the work is involving us, Weston and Sampson, communities responding to extreme weather, and then that long list of communities you see on your screen. Next slide. So as I keep saying, we didn't want to just focus on the problem, we wanted to focus on solutions. So we have looked at solutions at 3 different scales: the full watershed scale, the sub-basin or sub-watershed scale, and then the site scale. And that's where we're going to lean in tonight. So part of the project is looking for sites where we might be able to identify a project opportunity for flood mitigation and get going on it. In our modeling, we look out to 2070. That's some years away. It's not right around the corner. So if we start planning now, if we start doing projects now, identifying them, getting them funding, getting them in the ground, we're going to be in a lot better place when 2070 does arrive. So what we do is we ask our project partners, that long list of municipalities that you saw, to nominate project sites, give us project ideas. Sometimes these even come from residents. We've had a great project idea that came from a group of residents, a sort of lake association group. We have developed criteria to score and rank these. We developed that in an earlier phase of the project with public input. Once we collect all those project ideas, we use that prioritization methodology to identify our priority projects. So in our last year of work, essentially just about a year ago, we did identify an area along Alderbrook in Needham as a priority site. Next slide. All right. Thank you. So initially the project area that we focused on last year was a bit broader. As you're going to see, we're going to zoom into one piece of that project tonight. But the broader project, involves Alderbrook, an adjacent wetland, as well as the DeFazio tot lot, which we're talking about tonight. Next slide. I think it will. And maybe one more, there we go. Okay. So as part of the regional project, we identified these concept designs for the larger area. As you can see, it included some stream restoration, a stream daylight, a wetland restoration, as well as that DeFazio tot lot. And when we develop these designs, we like to do a variety of like a sort of a scale of projects, some that might be really easy to adapt and can be taken up quickly. Some might need some years, maybe even decades of planning and permitting. So we like to, kind of have that menu of options when we're working with communities on these concept designs, and then advance them at the pace that is right for the community and right for the project. So we were really excited that Needham was ready to go on this Alderbrook piece of the on this DeFazio lot piece of the Alderbrook project. And with that, I will hand it over to Gabby and Chris to do a deeper dive on that piece of the project.
Thanks, Julie. So as Julie said, we wanted to start with one piece of the puzzle that was kind of laid out through those concepts, and the DeFazio parking lot was a good starting point for us as we were looking at potential projects. Next slide, please. So our goal was to focus on that proposed concept, which was to put together some kind of green stormwater infrastructure solution for the DeFazio parking lot. So our intent was to obtain funding and develop a 100% engineering design for a best management practice that was going to help improve the Alderbrook watershed by improving water quality, primarily by reducing phosphorus load, which is a primary pollutant of concern in Needham and in the Charles River watershed. And as Julie said, also helped to reduce localized flooding. We know from years of prior storms that the flooding around Dedham Ave is a concern. So there is that additional benefit of being able to look at some options to both improve water quality and help hold some of that water quantity during those large storm events. The photo on the screen was taken by our friends at Beta, and this is showing the corner of the parking lot that we're going to be talking about tonight. You might recognize it because it often has water, even when there's not a storm event. It holds water for a period of time. So we're focused on that corner where you can see there's some vegetation on the right side near the tot lot. Next slide, please. So we were very fortunate in that we applied for and were awarded funding through the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management. They have a coastal habitat and water quality grant program that we applied for. Needham was eligible for that grant because we are part of the Charles River watershed, which means that our watershed is coastal, even though Needham is not bordering any oceans or anything like that. So we're fortunate to be awarded that grant. That award was back in August 2024. So this chart just shows where we are with the project process. As you can see, we're all the way at the end. This project will close out fully with the state on June 30th, 2025. So we're at that last stage now of engineering design outreach and letting folks know how we came to our 100% engineering design. Next slide, please. So in terms of outreach and engagement, that was highlighted on the previous chart, but just to hone in a little bit on what some of the outreach and engagement looked like for this project. There were a series of meetings that were held, including some presentations to boards and committees, Stormwater Bylaw Working Group, for example, Conservation Commission, and Select Board. We also had another public meeting back in February to introduce the draft concepts and gather feedback on those from the public. There was a community survey that was held earlier in May, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the results from that survey. And then there was also some social media with the town and CRWA accounts, News You Needham, CRW email listserv, and then also some coverage in the Needham local through the Needham channel. If you go to the next slide, you can see some screenshots from those presentations. There's a little video about the project and an article as well for those who might be interested in seeing that. Next slide, thank you. So we're going to jump into talking a little bit about the survey results. Next slide. So we had about 150, just over 150 individuals respond to the survey and provide their input. One of the first questions that we asked was a preference for between two renderings for the project, and we ended up having a pretty close vote on this one, but more folks ended up choosing the meadow native wildflower perennial mix, which is shown on the screen. We also asked folks for comments on the designs, in particular, any feedback on the renderings, and the theme from those comments, there are a few. One was maintenance. Maintenance came up repeatedly as being a priority concern for residents. A lot of folks also expressed appreciation for the use of native plants. There was a repeated emphasis on having the area be designed to look as natural as possible. There were also some positive comments appreciating the benefits for pollinators with this project. And then a few folks also emphasized that they wanted the design to be resilient, knowing that we're going to have future large storm events that might challenge the system. Next slide. We also asked folks about informational signage. We are hoping to have signage as part of the design for this project. And we got some great votes on this. Majority of votes that came in prioritize adding a description of the Alderbrook tributary to the Charles River. So just explaining that connection. Then followed by an overview of how stormwater runoff is actually treated by bioretention basins. And then finally, some folks voted for the description for native plants that would be included as part of the project. Next slide. And then in terms of stormwater best management practices around town, we wanted to get input from folks about where they'd like to see some of these other stormwater projects implemented. Since we've captured folks' attention with this project. So there was a significant number of votes for rain gardens, followed very closely by bioswales. And then our third top option was constructed wetlands. If you go to the next slide, you can see some examples for folks who might be hearing those terms for the first time. So rain garden on the left, that term is sometimes used interchangeably with bioretention basins, which is always designed with our project, which is just a larger, more engineered rain garden. Bioswales, next to that are the channels that usually have vegetation and are directing water usually into some kind of storm treatment system. And then finally, constructed wetlands on the right. Just like what it sounds like, constructing wetlands in an area that might not have wetlands currently, but is going to hold water for a longer period of time. Next slide. And then finally, we asked about a preference for where these best management practices should be located. A lot of votes came in for parking lots, followed by along roadways and parks. And some folks had suggestions for other locations as well. Next slide. And then finally, we gave folks an opportunity to provide comments or questions for the project team. I already mentioned this previously, but again, maintenance came up a number of times. There was a real strong desire to make sure that whatever is designed and implemented is something that is going to be feasible for staff to maintain. There was also a desire for using the most low-cost sustainable option that's going to be resilient to future storm events. There was an interest in having more stormwater management information shared with the public. People were interested in hearing more about stormwater management systems, what the town is doing. Flood prevention also came up quite a few times. Folks were interested in trying to learn more about what measures the town is taking to reduce flooding. There is also a lot of support for implementing stormwater best management practices that are going to be designed for the site needs, recognizing that different sites might need different things. There's also interest in having the impact of the implemented solutions be quantified so residents can understand what the value is for implementing these solutions. And then finally, a few folks expressed some appreciation for having public input in the design process, which was great to see as part of that. Next slide. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about the engineering design.
All right, thanks, Gabby. So yes, I've been working with the town of Needham and the CRWA on this project since about November, December of 2024. And now we're up to June 2025 at 100% design. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we have the existing conditions overview site plan. To your southwest, you have the DeFazio Field driveway entranceway, and this provides you access, obviously, to the DeFazio parking lot area. And then within this area, you have all the contours showing that the overflow, flow from any kind of rain event puddles up kind of towards that lower right-hand corner of the lot towards the top playground area. And as Gabby showed on the previous slides, a picture that we provided showing how there's a major flooding concern there, and impacts people being able to park and traffic flow, all those types of issues. And then on the next slide, please, I'll just go over to the actual proposed conditions where we're showing a slight regrading of the lot to provide enough sheet flow so that we can drain or slope the flow towards the two inlet connections or inlet control structures. That'll provide some pre-treatment to the rainwater. And then within the major shaded area is actually the bioretention, where we'll have all the plantings as well as the soil meter to provide the infiltration back into the ground, and all the different natural pollinating plants, as well as a slight overflow for any rain event that's higher than what we designed for. So in this instance, we designed for a 1/2 inch rain volume. Next slide, please. So here's a more zoomed in description, just showing all of the perennial mixes along the edge of the granite curbing that'll be provided as part of the design, and the two inlet control structures that will provide the inlet flow. And then we have all the different ornamental grasses within the central area of the bioretention, along with different varieties of trees and bushes and different, and then as well as a grass overflow with the riprap to provide some dissipation with the high velocity of flow rate that could be occurring. Next slide. So here's a more of a visual representation with one of the renderings that were provided with the design. So as you can see, we have the granite curbing that provides protection for the bioretention area, as well as the two inlet openings for the flow to go through and get pre-treated for any sediment from the gravel parking area, as well as a wooden guardrail to provide additional protection for the area that is more natural than having some form of steel barrier. And on that wooden guardrail, we show a educational board / panel, taking into consideration that the community wants to see sites where they're getting information regarding what projects are ongoing in town. So this is a way to show that the town is taking into those considerations for the residents. And then we also have the New England perennial wildflower mix along the edge that'll provide some, color, but also that natural metal look that people are looking for. Next slide, please. And so here again, we show more of the variety of plantings that will be a part of this bioretention area. So you have some red twig dogwood that provides a really vibrant red color for certain pollinators and birds, as well as a perennial mix of different variety of grasses, switchgrass, fox sedge, red top, and foul manna grass. That'll be more centralized within the actual bioretention media. And it provides different shades of green just to help, provide some color, as well as a larger red oak tree towards the background, in the back foreground, that will provide, a larger tree in the area. And then we have some inkberry bushes as well as witch hazel, providing some yellow color, and nannyberry, which has a natural white flower. So these are all the different, we tried to, work with natural plantings that just help, and they'll be easier to maintain, less, clean up in the fall, and just overall easier for the DPW operators to manage. And I believe that's all.
Thanks, Chris. For those who are kind of worried about, what's next. So at this point we have engineering design completed, and so that will wrap up the funding that was provided by the state grant for this project so far. The town will need to identify a future funding source to actually implement and construct the project. So we'll be having those conversations moving forward as we weigh this site against some other projects. If you're interested in learning more about the project, I would encourage you to check out the town sustainability website, and we'll also keep folks updated through the News You Needham. And with that, say thank you and hope everyone has a good evening.